So here we are today with this. It's actually a sunny day here in Michigan. With another Inspired Good Fat Life podcast. And today I'm really excited about my guest, who I'll introduce in a minute. And we are going to talk about some mental health issues. We're going to start with giving and receiving because it's a really big conversation and people don't understand a lot about it and the power of it. But before we do, I just want to make a mention of Good Fat Life, the magazine, which is available on our website, goodfatlife.com. It's digital, and it is also this beautiful live thing that you can sit down and grab your favorite beverage and just feel good. So with that, I want to introduce you to Lori Burns from Lori Burns Counseling, right? And Lori has a practice in the Nashville, Tennessee area, right? So she comes. Right. It's really a fun place to be, right, Lori?
Yes, very fun. Yes.
So, and Lori is a new counselor, and she's kind of been in the counseling, I would say, in the therapy business her whole life because people have come to her since she was probably very young, wanting to tell them their issues or problems because Lori is an amazing listener and always has really sound, grounded advice to share. And so she just naturally is that kind of person. So welcome to the show, Lori.
Well, thank you, Sherri. It's good to see you.
You too. So what prompted me to reach out to you is I was having a conversation with one of my children about giving and receiving, right? And and many people can be really good at giving, right? Can just give and give and give, but when it comes to receiving, not so good. And we had this come up with a person who one of my kids wanted to pay for a lunch. And for my mom, it was a really big deal. And she was like, oh, no, I can't do that, right? And I'm like, no, we're talking about receiving here. Giving and receiving are part of the same energy. It's all an energy. But you had shared with me a story I thought it brought to mind. And you probably told me this story, I don't know, a year or two ago. So would you like to share that?
Oh, yes. So I believe the story you're referring to is back in 2013, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And, actually, it started before then. But when you are the person in the family that does everything, you are the mom, you are the wife, you are in charge of the PTA at your son's school. You are in charge of the fundraising committee. So you are sort of that person that is the front line of all things doing. And then you roll over in bed one day and you find a lump. And a month later, you are in surgery and you are having everything taken. I had a bilateral mastectomy. And, it's amazing the generosity of people. And the hardest part for me was having to sit there and watch while people were wanting to come into my home and bring me food, bring my family food. It was my first experience with like the meal train and actually being the recipient of it. And I was extremely stubborn, prideful, even through not being able to lift my arms, even to take a shower. I was telling my husband, you tell these people to go away. We're good. You can handle this. We don't need help. We're good. Um, and the pastor of our church, wonderful people, they came over, and the pastor's wife came up and, in my probably drug induced, pain pill sort of state, said, "You need to allow people to bless you. You cannot be a blessing sucker." And those words,
That term stuck with me, being, are you a
yeah,
blessing sock, right?
yeah, yeah. And that's exactly what I was. It's when you don't allow other people to do for you, you are denying them. And it really is a deny. It's you are robbing them the gift of being able to do something for you. Um, and it's true. It's a very different, and it's hard for people like myself to open up that part of our heart. Um, but it changed me in that moment to realize, oh my gosh, I I am denying another person a gift. And it did. It changed things for me in that moment.
And so I think that's why that conversation that we had a couple years ago came up in this other conversation. And it doesn't have to be something that is as big as,
Mm-hmm.
breast cancer. Um,
Right.
it can be something simple like bringing flowers, a smile, buying a meal, a little thing, and the joy. And so there was a conversation around, yes, if somebody says to you, "Oh, I'd like to buy you lunch," and they're excited about it, it's an energy, right? "I'd love to buy your lunch." And you say, "Oh, no, I couldn't possibly let you." You've just shut that energy down. And
Right.
so
Right.
even if you end up letting them ultimately buy your lunch, you've shifted the energy. And so now it's a little bit glunky, it's
Mm-hmm.
not as clean um, and pure. And the exchange isn't the little miracle that it could be.
Mm-hmm.
When we like, "Oh no, I couldn't possibly let you do that," or blah blah blah. Where if you can go, "Oh my gosh, I would be so honored for you to buy me lunch," right? So then
Yeah.
everybody's having the joy around that.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking it in context of the world we're living in. Is there's a lot of tough things going on right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I see, obviously all different kinds of things in here. And there's, people are products of their environment. They're products of what's been going on in the last 3 years. We have an uptake of kids being in here, um, all different kinds of people. And I think we have this new generation coming up where um, parents are doing everything for the kids, and the kids actually aren't used to even being, they're not being taught to give, they're being taught to, receive.
Mm.
And I think um, with everything that's been happening in the chaos of the world right now, I the energy, I love how you say the word energy, because you're right. There is our words, and a lot of what I do in my with my sessions with my clients is talk about words and our perceptions of the words. And it's exactly as you stated. You can you can change energy by a look, by a tone, by the words, and the combination of all those things put together. And and especially if it's like a child to a parent, or like me as an adult child to my father. We've had some historical tons of battles over the dinner bill as an adult.
Mm.
And as you probably well know, my father, and he, and it all could be avoided if he would just be grateful. And that word gratitude is such a it's kind of a buzzword, but it's so important in, it should be important in our culture today, because um, gratitude in any generation has to be started in young children. If you have an only child, you have multiple children, in teaching them to be grateful for what they have, in not just toys and stuff, but in actions. That's extremely important.
Well, and I love that you brought that up, Lori, because I watch my grandchildren, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're at ages where um, receiving presents is really a big deal. You know, they're
Yeah.
4, 5, 6, and so we're and part of the conversation was brought up around this is how do you teach children that hey, yeah, it's great to get presents, and look how much fun it is to give them, you know, or to
Mm-hmm.
give a hug, to give a smile, and it doesn't have to be monetary.
Mm-hmm.
That it's all part of it. And it's like I said, the energy that you give it. So yeah, it's great to give it, but oh my gosh, it feels good to give it as well. And it's a back and forth and ebb and flow. And
Mm-hmm.
I I love that you brought up the next generation because we need to be mindful of that, right?
Yeah, and I do believe all of this starts at home. I mean, if anything, I've learned that it is so important that it does start at home with the parents, and teaching the children about it, and modeling it. Modeling, this is what, I am grateful to my partner for, giving me a hug for no reason, or bringing in a wildflower, or um, you know, my son moved my car into the driveway yesterday afternoon for no reason. He didn't have to, he just brought it in. And just being grateful for those little things. And it's showing him that that was such a simple little thing that took you 10 seconds to do, that I am grateful for those little things that you do for me. And so when he goes and he gets married, he can then be grateful for his wife packing a lunch for him and not taking it for granted.
Right. So recently, I lost my bonus mother
Mm.
on February 20th of this year, and her name is Sharon Johnsanti. She was an angel, but it's been interesting because she so modeled
Mm-hmm.
that gratitude and that appreciation for little things. And as you're talking, I'm going. She was just so good at giving and receiving. Right. You bring
Mm-hmm.
something in, it was like, oh, thank you so much. There wasn't, oh, you shouldn't have. It's like, oh, just pure
Yeah.
joy at the receipt. And we were talking about in as we're grieving over our losses, but also being able to take those things that we learned from people, right,
Mm-hmm.
and spring that forward. How do we transfer those things that were so beautiful, that we love so much about people that have been in our lives that modeled those things, and how do we move that forward to the next generation?
Mm-hmm.
Ensure that the things I learned from Sharon that I can help teach to my kids and to their kids and stuff, and to be intentional about it. And that brought me so much joy and comfort, so it's not like a loss so much, but it's a gain, and how to move that forward as
Mm-hmm.
life goes on. So,
Well, I actually have a perfect example of that, just even between my story and your story. And maybe you learned this from Sharon, I don't know, but being raised and being around as a teenager around you, and watching how you took me under your wing and gave me clothes out of your closet all the time. Okay. You did that with a generous heart. Um, and I have those exact same tendencies because I watched that. You were the only person in my life that did that. And my wonderful stepmother tells me all the time how much I remind her of you. You're always giving your stuff away. You're always giving your stuff away. You're just like Sherri. You're always giving your stuff
Oh.
away, and you
Well,
do
you
it willingly.
received it so beautifully, right? It made me feel good. So maybe that's
Even
part of it.
yeah,
So,
even the last time I saw you, you gave me your black raincoat, and I wore it yesterday, and somebody asked me about it, and I did accept that very well.
very beautifully. Yeah, you're a
Yeah.
beautiful receiver. Oh, that's so funny. Those things that we just don't even realize, right? So,
Yeah.
so what? And one of the there's a couple things that um, I would like to ask about because these have been tough times
Hmm.
for lots of people. There's been a lot of wonderful things that have happened, but some really challenging things that happened. And I know you're seeing. It's like there's so many things we could talk about, Laura, right? But let's talk about what you're seeing in your practice with people that are coming to you, and what kinds of things that they could maybe do. First, what are you seeing the most that's bringing people down, and how can you help people feel better to move forward?
Um, well, right now, with probably in the last 18 months, my biggest clientele, I would say, are probably the 20 to 27-year-olds, which is so interesting. And there is this pervasive sort of lack of direction and hopelessness, um, which, at first was really hard for me to, it was hard for me to connect with on one hand, because there are a lot of things I can connect with people with. I've done a lot of things. I've been through a lot of things. I've seen a lot of things. I've suffered all different kinds of things. Um, Hopelessness is a hard one for me. Um, and for somebody, for a population so young, to be so um, sad, I guess, so
Mm.
sad and lost. Um, and and throw in the middle of that COVID, it feels almost like this is a pivot point in our culture, and a lot of them are having to live with their parents, and they hate it, and they don't know what they want to do with their lives, and they just have no direction, and they don't seem to be able to live outside of themselves,
Mm.
and that seems to be at the core issue of a lot of the sadness and the depression. And it's a pervasive problem. Um, and so, when you talk about the giving and the receiving, the fact that they're even sitting in my office is huge, right? They're at that point where there's just that they're at that point where it's like, okay, we've now turned to medication. A lot of them they're on some sort of medication, and their doctor have said to them, you need to go talk to somebody. If we're going to give you this medicine, you have to go talk to somebody. um, and so putting in just some very key um, elements alongside of that of, how do you go in and navigate a person that, maybe they haven't had the best childhood to begin with, and they're still living in the house where, either, maybe not divorced parents or whatever their family system happens to be, um, and have them be an adult, because they are adults, when they've never really learned how to grow up. And where do you start with that? And how do you teach them how to stand in their own truth? And what is that truth? And it's kind of like starting from square one, but the basic components of what you and I know from our generation, it's like, okay, you've done the first thing, you're talking to somebody, you're opening
Right.
up.
Right.
right? And so some of that goes back to, you know, when you start to live outside of yourself, your energy
Right.
changes.
Right. Right. I was going to ask you about that because I know for me, when I start feeling if I start feeling sad or I don't know, where I don't have, like with what's going on in the world, some of the things I have no control over it, right? And
Mm-hmm.
they can be heartbreaking. I do find that that's the time where I'm looking for ways
Mm-hmm.
to give back in some way, whether it's like one of my friends took jars of jam to all of her neighbors, homemade jam, and just said, "Hey, I see you. I appreciate you. Have some jam, enjoy."
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
and it's a little thing, but it's a big thing
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because, yeah, because when we're, it, it can feel, it's something we can control.
Yep, exactly. Well, and I do a lot of um, psychoeducation in my sessions where we talk about. Um, I use a lot of terminology around survival bricks, and once people lose that sense of control over their environment,
Mm.
okay, which is the number one thing we all strive for. I mean, you think about it. When you're a toddler and you're on the floor, you're a baby and you're crawling around, you're looking for things to put into your mouth, right?
Mm.
And what's the very first thing that an adult will do?
Takes it
Take it
away,
out.
right?
Yep. So there's initially, just from day one, there is a power struggle. You're trying to put it in, somebody else is trying to take it away. Even until the day that you are on your way into the nursing home and your grandkids or your children take the keys away from you. That's your almost your very last thing that you have control over is driving, right? And so it's an entire lifetime of control that we're trying to make some sort of sense. And it's constant, and it's evolving, and it looks differently depending on what season of life that you're in. But the things that you can control are the ones that you have to grab a hold of. And those are the things like, and you can control doing things for other people. You
Mm.
can control how you receive things that other people do for you. You can control asking for help. And to me, those are extremely
Wow.
powerful things. Like,
I
you know
just
what?
got those
Hey,
little chills that come, right? Because that's such a,
yeah,
and there's no cost to that. It's a mindset.
it's a mindset. That's right.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's when it becomes a cost is when somebody else takes it from you.
Wow. So you are good at what you do, right? You are so good at what you do. So one thing I didn't really introduce Lori too much at the top of the show, but one of the things that is really a great story about her is she recently, like I said, started counseling, but she's been doing things for years, for decades that we're building for that, right? And
Kind
so
of, yeah.
we have that, and we were talking about, I remember being in college trying to decide, I knew what I wanted to do, but yet I didn't have any confidence that I could really do it. And there's so much stress that you get it right. And if you don't get it right, you're a failure. You're doomed for failure. And
Mm,
I remember, full disclosure, I remember just wanting to kill myself. Like what would be the easiest way to kill myself, because I don't have the confidence that I can be successful as an adult. But
mm-hmm.
then you kind of, you get older and you
And you don't.
realize, you get older and you realize, or you find those ways of coping. Like, I'm going to go
Yeah.
volunteer to do something. I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And it helps move you forward. But the thing that I learned, and what I love your modeling, and I think I know my career's certainly changed, is that it's a journey,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's kind of like stepping stones. So we do something, and you give it your best shot, and you show up as the best you can, and then that thing's going to lead to something else. It's going to lead to the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the fact that there's not like this limit, like that old thing, like you retired at 65 and you were done. It's like, well, no, you could just be starting a whole nother chapter of your life that's even more exciting, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You're absolutely right there. Again, you know, there is no, there is no playbook, right? Of, uh, there is no law as far as
I know.
what you
It's like,
can do.
who made that law, right?
Yeah. Yeah. The word retirement, in our family is kind of laughable because, my dad's 80 years old and he still drives to work. Because, maybe you know this, Sherry, but somebody famous said, um, if you love what you do, you won't work a day in your life. And
Right.
um, so, it, my journey, um, through college, when I was, I think my junior and senior year, I decided I wanted to be a marriage and family therapist. And this is, a long time ago. I will not say how long, but decades ago. Um, and so I graduated with a bachelor's degree in social work and started my career as a social worker in Southern California. And it was the hardest, most heartbreaking job that I've ever had in my life. And I couldn't do it. It was too hard. I wasn't strong enough. I was a 21-year-old girl that had gone to Christian schools my entire life and was not ready for the big bad world of, humanity, basically, and how poorly people can treat their children. And so, my perspective of life is, crossroads. You come to a crossroad and you take one. You go, you pick a road, and then you come to another one and you pick another one, and you just keep going. And here I am 30 years later, marriage and family counseling. So I have literally come full circle with about a 25-year detour. But here I am, exactly where I wanted to be, but it just took me a really long time to get here.
Well, but it's building on it, right? You had to get
Oh,
life
yeah.
experience, right, to make it
Oh,
um,
yeah.
right.
It's,
I hear you.
yeah.
When I was in college too, I fell in love with the income statement, and here I
Nerd.
am. Yeah, I know. But here I am,
Yeah.
working on my PhD now on conscious entrepreneurship, and I work with entrepreneurs with their income statements all the time. I mean, that's just one of
Yeah.
the things we do. But if we cycle it back to good fat life, one of the
Yeah.
things I've learned along the way is how important it is to take care of ourselves as human beings. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It
Yeah.
can't just be all work or family or whatever. It's a mix.
Mm-hmm.
And
Balance.
so we like to say it starts with an avocado. you know?
Unless you're allergic to them.
Right, unless you're allergic to it, right, but you or
Yeah.
olive oil, you eat good
Yeah.
fat, you feel better and you show up
Yeah.
bigger and you can do the things that
Yeah.
you love to do. But
You're
um
adorable.
so it's just funny how kind of life works when you
I
can be
know.
open to it. And again, I think it comes kind of back where we started with open to it and find ways to um, enjoy the day, because every day is going to have that up and down stuff, right? But every day is going to be full of opportunities to give and opportunities to receive.
And on the heels of watching The Lion King last week, Akuna Matata.
Oh, there.
Okay. So that is my mantra for basically 2022, right? Just, yeah,
Just like,
no worries.
so what, no worries. That's what it translates to. So, okay. So I'm going to take a little station break for a sec. and do a shout out to one of our sponsors. And then when I come back, I'm going to ask you for, what one thing would you say to people that they could do today that just helps them feel better, kind of move through and a coping skill for the world that we're living in. Okay? Okay. So I'm just going to take a quick minute and shout out Snedicor's Cleaners, who I love. I have my almost weekly yellow bag out on the curb, and my clothes are returned to me a couple days later, and they're in my closet, and I have this confidence knowing that I'm ready to face the outside world, especially now that we're going back to the outside world. I kind of got out of the habit of washing and ironing and all that stuff, and that's not something that I want to return to. So I love that Snedicor's Cleaners makes it easier for me. And they are environmentally friendly, so my clothes come back even in better shape than when they left. So thank you to them. So what do you think, Laura? What would you suggest?
Well, I have two things, but I will start with one thing that I do a lot of mindfulness practice while I'm with my people. I do a lot of grounding techniques. But for me, I think being mindful in the present moment, okay? In the present moment, it allows us to let go of negative, difficult emotions from past experiences or the past year or things that are just really weighing us down. Separating emotions, negative emotions from basically from what's keeping us from moving on, from the positive things, like thinking about things like, what do we want to do? What are some positive things we want to move into for the day? And bringing awareness to our routine activities, and you can simplify those routine activities, such as taking a shower or eating lunch or taking a walk or figuring out, who do I want to go visit today? Or maybe I want to call a friend I haven't called in 6 months, and paying attention to physical sensations. I'll have clients, sometimes we'll go sit outside if it's nice, and I'll just have them close their eyes and notice, do you feel the sun on your face? Do you hear anything? Do you smell anything? Just having them really be in touch with physical sensations, smell, sounds, smells, tastes. Like, do you remember what you had for dinner? Or do you like wine? Or just really getting in touch with their senses, and to really focus in on things that are positive, so that when your mind does wander, or when your mind does want to go back to things that maybe aren't so positive, it just kind of can get you refocused into the moment, and then you can implant something positive, like, okay, I think I'm actually going to go and take a walk now. And that's my second thing. Get some endorphins going, get some exercise going, even if it's small, starting small. Get your muscles moving.
And you mentioned earlier about being in the sunshine.
Yes. Oh, yes. Sunshine. I have a very dear friend that I work with here in the Nashville area, Dr. Amy Neff. She mentioned, I don't know, I was with her a couple weeks ago, that 20 minutes a day is all you need for amazing boost of vitamin D from the sun. 20 minutes. Don't have to take any supplements. No,
you just have to have a sun out.
You have to have the sun. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Which can be a challenge, but
yeah, I mean, obviously you have to have the sun out, but I mean, think about that. How many people take vitamin D? I mean, I do.
Right.
I'm one of them.
Right. So, but I love what you said. It's just be mindful, because the sun was out today. And so even though my days kind of was really busy, I did, based on that, say, okay, we're going to get outside for at least 20 minutes and be in the sun. And even if I'm thinking through something or talking on the phone while I am walking, I'm still out in the sun, right? There's ways to do it if you are mindful and intentional about it. So,
and you know, there's also quite a bit of data to support when you are intentional in helping someone else, even if it's a stranger, even if it's letting somebody in a traffic lane. Okay, simple little things. It boosts your own self-esteem.
And those are things that we can do all day long.
Yep, super
right?
easy, super easy.
Right? So instead of putting your foot on the accelerator to cut them off, you just go, okay, you know, I'm going to.
Yeah, super easy.
Super. Well, thank you so much for being here. It's always wonderful to see you, and also to see how you've come full circle, right?
Yes.
And I know that you love what you're doing so much, and your clients are really amazing. Fortunate to get you.
Oh, well, thank you.
Not that I'm not prejudiced. I just know what a gift you have for helping people work through their stuff so that they can be their best selves. Which we like to say is, you know, living a good fat life.
And I love my job. So thank you for having me on today, Sherri. It's good to see you.
Yeah. So if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, how would they do that?
Lori at LoriBurnsCounseling.com.
Okay. And we will post that when we post it, so that nobody has to remember to write it down. Okay. Okay. Well, on that happy note, Laura, let's go out and live our good fat lives.
Excellent.
Okay.
All right.
See ya.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.